Welcome to JR's Amateur Hobby Shop. I'm an old retired guy that's been having fun learning how to do a little woodwork and making some projects and rehabbing a house or two. Anyway, a friend of mine gave me some black walnut that he had for over 20 years. It come from a tree that he had cut 5/4, and basically it's laid out in his backyard all that time. As you can imagine, the wood is kind of rough. It's got some rot on the edges and ends, and needed quite a bit of work before I could do anything with it. I asked him what his suggestion might be, and he suggested that I build a humidor for my son. Well, I don't know anything about humidors or cigars, so I looked it up. I found it. Basically, a humidor is a box lined with Spanish cedar. Some of them are really fancy, some of them are very plain, but they're all lined with Spanish cedars. So I decided I'd go ahead and try and make one of those, and I designed it to be about 16 inches by 8.5 by 12 tall, or 12 inches in depth. The actual dimensions vary just a little bit, but I followed the golden rectangle principle, and they came out fairly decently. Additionally, I had seen a number of YouTube videos discussing river tables, and I decided that maybe I'd try to incorporate a river table on one of those. One of the first things I had to do was take my plane with a sled and begin flattening the wood, the milling process. It was very warped, as you saw, and in rough shape. But I did learn how to do this, even though it took me a while. And my first attempt was pretty pitiful, as you can see by this picture. I got it just a little bit thin and never did get the thing flat. Anyway, to flatten the rest of the boards, and then use my table saw to joint the edges. Now, if you look on YouTube, you can find videos that show you how to do this. Worked well in my case, so that I ended up with flat boards that were square and were easily then cut to the size that I needed to make my river top. Humidor. These are the boards I picked to make the top. I cut them to size, and then I went about making the epoxy river on the boards. To do this, I used a coated shelf from Home Depot, thinking that it wouldn't stick. This picture shows that it absolutely stuck, and I had to chisel the top off once I was through making the river. I had to clean it up, but it did work out all right. There are a number of videos on YouTube showing how to create the forms, mix and color the epoxy, pour, etc. Watch several of these videos, make lots of notes, and follow the instructions carefully. As you can, I did use the blue metallic to make the river on my humidor. Once I had the top made, I was able to then dovetail the sides, put a decorative edge on the base, and glue it all together. Once the sides and the top were all glued, I then cut the top on the table saw and then fitted the base. This is a shot of the unfinished humidor, and this is a shot of the humidor as it looked finished. As you can see in this, the blue on the sides is where I made a minor mistake when I used the dovetailing, but then used the epoxy to fill in my mistake and make it came out looking pretty good. This shows the finished box with the hardware that I bought off of the internet. Turned out to be pretty cheap and very flimsy. Because of the size and the weight of the box, I later exchanged that hardware for something much heavier and much more appropriate. I also ordered Spanish cedar off the internet and ended up with a number of different sizes, thicknesses, and pieces, which I had to adapt and make, put together for the interior of the humidor. This shot shows the interior with a tray so that additional cigars could be added. Something else I wanted to experiment with, and to make the humidor even more unique, I added fairy lights under the Spanish cedar on the top for dramatic effect. The lights are battery operated and controlled by an infrared remote. This shot clearly shows the dovetail mistake and the fix using epoxy. Came out fairly decent. These shots also show the additional hardware that I swapped out from the cheap stuff that I bought on the internet. This was also bought on the internet, but it is much heavier duty and looks a whole. This is a picture of the interior of the finished humidor, obviously with cigars, a humidifier, and a humidity gauge. This has been a fun project for me. I am strictly an amateur and I'm learning as I'm going along. I want to thank you for viewing. Have a good day.